Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. So glad you're joining me here today. So we have a special duo here from Bath & Body Works, and it is their like mini wedding collection, which it's actually kind of surprising why they haven't thought to do this before this point. But these two particular fragrances are being marketed as kind of his and hers wedding fragrances. And they have flanking body care, etc., etc. And I believe the intention probably is for them to come out every year to be kind of the signature bridal scents. One of them is dressed in white, looks like this once it's burned. Obviously, it's like a cream colored wax, so it's a little bit translucent up here, and it definitely looks a little bit different once it's got the wax behind it. But I personally think this is a stunning label, and it's just a wraparound. I mean, it's got the seam there. It's a little bit textured, but it goes to show you a wraparound can still be super stunning. The colors are gorgeous. The one thing, if I had to nitpick, this right here looks a little tacky, this little label part, and the font I think needs some work. The font is a little bit on the cheap side, especially where it says by Bath & Body Works. So I would work a little bit on those little finishing touches. It's got kind of a gold lid, which looks really nice with it. Really nice. And then this, which is marketed as the masculine fragrance, which is First Sight, please. There you go. Yeah. Okay. First Sight. And I initially thought this was pretty phoned in terms of the packaging, and I kind of laughed at a certain point and said, this is a very like hetero straight kind of vibe. So with weddings that are like heterosexual, it's the bride's day. It's the bride's day, and the groom is like almost an afterthought. And this collection feels a little like that. So the packaging is just kind of this blue. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, what would I have done for the masculine side of things? By the way, all of the flankers here for First Sight are on the men's wall, basically, of fragrances. So very obviously marketed here, masculine and feminine. I do think that blue is probably the right shade, like a really beautiful like navy blue, but this just doesn't do it for me. And can you tell? Look at that. Like, it hasn't been cut the right way either. So it's like really janky. And it does have kind of the motif behind it of this. And it's got this like textured thing down here. But even for some of their more masculine leaning candles, I would say that this is kind of phoned in a little bit. And I think the entire masculine side of the collection is phoned in, at least when it comes to packaging and marketing. Well, I was just about to say something, and now I'm like, it just completely, I just completely went out of my head. And I apologize. I don't know what it was that I was going to say. I have, spoiler alert, because I love this fragrance, I did pick it up in the fragrance mist, and unfortunately, it's like not even a nice fragrance mist for the men's side. It looks like an Axe body spray or something. It's just really not nice. So, yeah, I don't love, oh, I know what I was about to say. What I was about to say is that the packaging and the marketing shift here is by no means coincidental. We heard about Dressed in White very early on. It got all of the buzz, and frankly, it's still getting all of the buzz. First Sight has gotten almost no buzz, and that's kind of indicative of the way this collection has kind of landed. Unfortunately, I actually think in terms of fragrances, this is the major standout. So this is a white floral, this Dressed in White. This one is a very interesting, it's supposed to be masculine leaning. And I can't say it's not masculine leaning, but I would say it's definitely more in the unisexual realm. And it is, I believe, a dupe straight up of Baccarat Rouge 540, which has been the leading female perfume for like the last 2.5 years, like by a very wide margin. And to my knowledge, I mean, obviously you can wear whatever you want to wear, regardless of your sex, your gender, how you identify. Like, this is a free country. You can do what you want. But I don't think Baccarat Rouge has been marketed for a masculine audience. And I personally don't know of any men who wear Baccarat Rouge. So it's a pretty solidly like feminine perfume. And obviously, like, I remember back in the day, like in the 90s, like Calvin Klein had a lot of like really unisexual kind of fragrances. So often if a fragrance is in between, if it can be marketed for unisexual, especially now when it's become quite popular to have not strictly gendered kind of packaging and fragrances, if it can be marketed unisexual, it will be. And I just don't think Baccarat Rouge is. I mean, I just think it's straight up a women's perfume, which makes it all the more odd that we've got this dupe for Baccarat Rouge, which frankly should be a moment at Bath and Body Works. A lot of companies have tried to dupe Baccarat Rouge because of its like runaway popularity over the last 2 years. By the way, Ariana Grande has a perfume called Cloud, which is a dupe, and I would say it's a little bit on the sweeter side. So that's a dupe of Baccarat Rouge that goes even more feminine. I would say this is a very good dupe that leans a little bit more masculine, so I love it even more. It's a little bit more woody, I think, than original Baccarat Rouge, but very, very close. And what with Bath and Body Works' new like everyday luxuries dupe of like famous perfumes, if they were doing, which I think they have, a dupe of Baccarat Rouge, it should have been a moment. It's incredibly popular. They should be cashing in on this. And instead, because they made it not only did they put it in masculine packaging and are marketing it for a masculine audience, but they also made it the flanker of the candle that was for brides and have given it absolutely no advertisement, promotion, or buzz. Like, I'm kind of blown away right now. Bath and Body Works usually does not make marketing blunders of this nature. And I am just so confused as to what is going on here. Like, I have no idea. This, and even if there was not a Baccarat Rouge perfume that was being duped here, and if you know nothing about Baccarat Rouge, bless you, you don't need to. Even if you know nothing about Baccarat Rouge, just objectively, like, this is definitely the better fragrance to this one, which is a little bit pedestrian, right? So I just on all levels, I'm confused by this mini collection, and I think it's an enormous missed opportunity for Bath and Body Works. Enormous, huge. I'm gonna get all pretty women on you. Huge mistake, huge. By the way, Kringle has a candle that is a dupe of Baccarat Rouge. It came out last year, I believe, in the spring collection, and it was called Mon Amour. So it was an obvious nod to the French like motif there of Baccarat Rouge. And I got Mon Amour in a daylight, and I loved it because, frankly, I love Baccarat Rouge. We'll get to that in a second. But that candle, by all reports, did not perform well. So even in a 3-wick vessel, because it did come out in various different formats, even in the 3-wick format, Mon Amour was coming in at a very low, like 4 on a scale to 10 kind of situation. I wanted to get, at some point I had in the back of my mind buying that 3-wick, although I didn't love the packaging. I didn't think it was that special, because I knew just not to even mess around with the 2-wick on that. And I believe that's still in stock. I'll actually link that down below too, if you're at all curious. So, Mon Amour from Kringle will be very similar. If I remember correctly though, Mon Amour either hues very, very close to Baccarat Rouge or kind of goes a little bit Ariana Cloud, goes a little bit sweeter. Like I said, this one, it's just a shade of emphasis. It's definitely Baccarat Rouge, but this one turns down the sweetness a little bit and gives you a lot more musk and wood, and therefore is maybe a little bit more masculine leaning. Don't get it twisted though. I really don't think this is a masculine fragrance, and I'm very curious to know how many men would want to smell like this. There will be some, but enough for it to be marketed at Bath & Body Works as a masculine cologne. I mean, if you smell all of the like quote unquote masculine offerings at Bath & Body Works, this is gonna be a real tough sell. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna give my suggestions as to what Bath & Body Works should do with this going forward. So let's talk, I'm burying the lead here. Let's talk about the scent notes. Let's start out with Dressed in White, actually, which is so stunning. I burned this one for the most part down to the wick clips, but I think one of the wick clips was sitting weirdly quite high because there's a considerable amount of wax still left in this candle, and I couldn't burn up. It's, for whatever reasons, one of the wick clips is just sitting very high. It burned actually for the most part quite well, fairly clean. Although smelling it now, I'm getting a lot of soot and I'm getting a lot of carbon residue. However, that may be due to the fact that that one wick had so much trouble here toward the end. For the most part, I didn't notice the soot and I didn't notice the carbon residue, but unfortunately it is a fairly fragile kind of botanical white floral. So if you have any kind of sooting or carbon residue, unfortunately you are going to start picking up on it in the lower parts of the candle. Burned quite well though, really for the most part, didn't dud out, didn't do crazy things, didn't even burn low. I mean, it burned high the entire time and was fairly clean. Yeah, I'm having a hard time smelling it true here because of the soot though. The notes on this are pear blossom, ivory gardenia, and satin woods. So even in this one, you're getting a good amount of musk and you're getting a good amount of like a wood base. Not nearly as much as in here, but you're getting some, which balances it. And then for me, you've got you've got the white floral, it's very sweet. And then you have something that is fruity on top. And I think that's maybe what they're calling the pear blossom. For me, it wasn't coming across like in a pronounced pear way. And in fact, when I initially was smelling it, I was thinking citrus, perhaps even a lemon. There could be a bergamot in here, for instance. So for me, the fruitiness goes a little bit citrus, not in a like, this is a citrus candle kind of way, but the finish of it is a little bit like citrusy, a little bit acidic. But I could see also how there could be some amount of like pear in it too, kind of more of a lower range fruit. It would come across kind of similarly. I don't know what to say about this. In my Bath & Body Works store, all of the associates love this one and they don't like this one. But they had never heard of Baccarat Rouge either. It was just so bizarre. I'm like, well, it's a dupe for Baccarat Rouge. And they just stared at me blankly. And I was like, do you know what Baccarat Rouge is? They're like, no. I said, have you heard of Ariana Grande's perfumes? No. I don't know what's going on with the sales associates in my particular store. They really loved the Dressed in White. And I can understand. I mean, it is very pleasant and it is very nice. And I don't know how much of my attitude toward it is colored by the fact that we've just had so many white florals from Bath & Body Works. I mean, toot court, the like last couple decades, but especially even in this first quarter of the year, we've had a lot of white florals. I mean, if you think about, I mean, obviously Tropidelic, which is the new one, and then Brightest Best Blooms or whatever else it is, Best Blooms. But then you think about some of the other ones that have been strong pushes over the last 2 years, like Flower Child, the new Marshmallow, the Marshmallow Dreams or Daffodil Dreams, whatever, yeah. Although Daffodil Dreams was more marshmallow than it was floral, so maybe that doesn't count. Flower Child, and then I'm drawing a blank when I should be. You know what the florals are that have been on the floor, right? I just feel as though we've had a lot of them and they're all decent. Don't get me wrong. Oh, there's that new Gingham Unstoppable too. They've been really fairly decent. I don't know that there have been a lot of standouts though. I personally think if there is a standout, it is Tropidelic, because it has kind of a really beautiful like banana-like creaminess to it, and even kind of a banana blossom or banana leaf kind of like overtone to it, which I think is just really gorgeous and a little bit less expected than some of the other white florals that we usually get from Bath & Body Works. This is definitely another really nice white floral, but is it a standout? Is it a standout even amongst the white florals that they have? And then on top of it, is it so much of a standout that it should be your signature scent when you get married? Like, I just don't think so. I don't think so. I don't. And in that sense, it's nice, but it's not as special as I think it should be. Honestly, the Bridgerton collection was very similar. Most of those candles are nice, but they're not quite as special as you would expect in a really heavily promoted, like, red letter collaboration with Netflix. I just don't think it's that special. And I mean, I suppose I should just give Bath & Body Works a pass and be like, oh, it's Bath & Body Works, they don't care, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that's the case. And I think recently Bath & Body Works has been pushing beyond their comfort zone and doing a lot of really unique, out of the box, intriguing, if not brilliant kinds of things. And so I guess my bar is getting higher for Bath & Body Works. And when I see a collection like this wedding collection, which should be like a signature annual like thing, and their first big wedding marketed like collection, I want to see something more spectacular. I just do. It comes down to that. Would I repurchase this one? No. I can't say though that I'm a huge floral person. And if you are a floral person, I think you should definitely check it out. It's very nice. I like it better than the Best Blooms, which for me is a little on the heavy side, a little on the generic side. I think this one is a better white floral than that one. Didn't perform all that well in terms of strength and throw. So I don't think it did particularly well in the open concept. I mean, it was coming in at like maybe a 3 or a 4. In the back bedroom, it did much better. And it got up, but I mean, it took several hours, but it did get up to like a 5.5, maybe a 6. But this was not a candle that was particularly strong. And frankly, I kind of wanted it to be strong because I think this candle is much more balanced than many of the white florals that they give us. It doesn't have a very obvious body care, thick, soapy component. It's not powdery. It's not overwhelming. Even though it says gardenia, it's not overwhelming with one of the really loud white florals like jasmine or gardenia or something. It's not going to press on your senses. It's really got a very like fresh, almost clean kind of vibe to it. You could stand to get this fragrance up into the 7.5 range. So in that sense, it's an underperformer for me. And then when you add in the fact that it's not any like a completely remarkable fragrance, you're just left with something that is nice, but not necessarily something to write home about. And I think in this collection, it needed to be something to write home about. I personally don't understand why they didn't do Orange Blossom in here. So that new, I know I've been like hyping this Orange Blossom candle and I haven't even burned it. So it's so inappropriate because I'm probably going to burn it and be like, this is disgusting. But that Orange Blossom single wick essentials candle that they've got at the front cash wrap, you know, that very limited kind of essentials gray toned wax collection, that Orange Blossom seems like a real standout. It's like basically a citrusy white floral. It's pure, it's kind of stripped down, and it's lovely. And given the association of orange blossom to brides and to weddings, I think it would have been beautiful to have been poured in a vessel and called dressed in white. And orange blossom just would have been like really chef's kiss in terms of like the concept, right? Orange blossoms for dressed in white. And then the fact that that orange blossom fragrance really does seem unique and really gorgeous. I think that was a missed opportunity with dressed in white. So do I really want dressed in white to come back every June? No. And frankly, I don't know how many brides would be clamoring for it either. So. That's that. Baccarat Rouge, otherwise known as First Sight, as in love at first sight, I believe. Gosh, it's beautiful. Let me just take a moment. Where's my camera? Let me just take a moment to talk about Baccarat Rouge. So I know this is a basic B fragrance. I mean, I live very close to a university, and when all the university co-ed girls walk by, it's a cloud of Baccarat Rouge. It's become so ubiquitous and kind of groan-inducing that wherever you are in any kind of company of women over the last like 2.5 years, you've got a whiff of Baccarat Rouge. But here's the thing, and I know it's groan-inducing, but it's actually a really fantastic fragrance. For a fragrance to become hoard-worthy, for it to become so ubiquitous, it frankly has to be something special. It's very similar as like, since we're talking about weddings, Canon in D, for instance, the music that brides walk down the aisle to or whatever. Like, I'm actually like an organist, if you can believe it, and a musician. How many times have I been asked to do Canon in D for brides walking down the aisle? Like, it's crazy. Are there other pieces that would be just as majestic, more majestic? Yes. But when it comes down to it, Canon in D is actually a really lovely piece of music. It's gorgeous, right? Or like you think of other classical music songs that are pieces that are just really like very well known, like Beethoven's Fifth. Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 right? Like everybody knows that even if you don't know classical music, you know, 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky. Like there's just certain pieces that are so overdone, frankly, but they're overdone because they're so fantastic. Yeah? And I think Baccarat Rouge kind of fits into that category. Yes, it's being overdone. Yes, I wouldn't like, even though I bought the body splash of it, I'm really careful about where I wear it, and I try to like wear it just for me. Like if I'm going out for a walk or something like that, I would be embarrassed to like smell like Baccarat Rouge at this point because everybody does, and it just like makes it makes you look like you have no creativity, no independence, etc., etc. But like, let's not get it twisted. It is a stunning fragrance, stunning. And so in the privacy of my home, yes, I want a Baccarat Rouge candle, and I do want to smell it and not feel embarrassed about smelling it. I don't know if that makes any sense. I know there will still be people on this who watch this video and are like, oh my gosh, never, under no circumstances. Let's move on. So overdone. And I get it. But like, let's be fair. It's fantastic. All right, so the notes on the bottom of this are Italian bergamot, rich woods, and sugared musk. So musk, wood, bergamot. On paper, it does look like a men's cologne. There's no question. But I think a lot of men are going to smell this and be like, what? I don't think so. Like, would you want to smell like this? So I looked up the notes for Baccarat Rouge. It is saffron and jasmine on the top. And then here's where we've got mid notes, amberwood and ambergris, very musky. Base notes, fir resin and cedar. So do you see that heavy like musk wood component to Baccarat Rouge? Now, for me personally, Baccarat Rouge is so loud and so heavy in the sweeter aspects of that fragrance. So it is the jasmine with the amber, with the saffron. And for me, and I've said this before, the entire fragrance seems to glow like an amber color. If there was a color for Baccarat Rouge, which means red, it is like a very bronzy kind of color. And if I was marketing it, I would probably market as kind of like a bronze goddess, Sol de Janeiro kind of situation. There is something that is almost caramelized. Like there's a sugar that is just, it's caramel. I can't explain it. And it's the amber up against this particular sugar that for me makes it come across more as, along with the musk, come across more as like a caramel than a floral. Like I just don't think of this perfume as a floral perfume, although it has the high sweetness of a white floral, if that makes any sense. This candle here is very strong on the wood component and backs a little bit off of the caramelized sweetness. Don't get me wrong, it's a very sweet fragrance, so much so that I think it's odd to market it as a masculine fragrance. But it has dialed it down just enough to allow those woods to come forward even more with the musk. And I think Bath & Body Works is just hoping they can pull off this like masculine packaging because of those elements. And because I tend to like things a little bit less sweet, and because my tastes are more masculine, I'm obsessed. And I would rather have this than the actual like Baccarat Rouge, let alone like Ariana Grande's version of it. I want the musk and I want the wood above all else. And because that like jasmine, saffron, caramel, amber situation is so sweet and is so loud, you can stand to dial it down a little bit and still have a very balanced fragrance. And that's exactly what this is. It's fantastic. This candle has the distinction, and don't mind this is from like burning it in a weird way. This candle has the distinction of being literally the cleanest candle I have ever burned from Bath & Body Works. I was floored. I have never burned a candle from Bath & Body Works that was as clean as this one. I mean, just no soot, none. Clear as clear can be, a clear pool all the way down. It was fantastic. I don't know what wicks they're using here. I don't know what their wax formula is, but all of their candles need to be like this. This was actually not bad too. So it's not true that all the candles at Bath & Body Works perform badly. And man, this is Exhibit A. I did notice that the candle burned very fast though, very fast. And I'm inclined to think it has something to do with the wax formula here, that maybe it has more soy in it. I don't know. Because the wicks were not super thick and they weren't like super hot. Yes. Which is what often produces a lot of that soot and a lot of the like dirt, right? They're really pretty slim wicks and they just burned. It just, the candle, I felt like I only got about like 4 or 5 really good burns out of it, because every time I burned it, it would just go so fast. Strength and throw. So at first I thought that it was similar to Dressed in White. I couldn't get hardly anything out of it in the open concept. I put it in the back and I could build it up until about a 5.5, like maybe a 6, like Dressed in White, and was very disappointing, at least in the first like 2 burns, like serious burns. I was getting hardly anything. And I just chalked it up to, this fragrance must just be very difficult to project, because the Mon Amour from Kringle did exactly the same thing. It was like hardly anything, which is kind of hard, frankly, to accept, given the fact that when a woman walks by with Baccarat Rouge on, you smell it. So I don't know abstractly why this particular fragrance shouldn't be louder than it is in candle form, but I'm very happy to say that third, fourth burn, it started significantly picking up. I would say that the strength and throw like appreciably got better within like the second half of the candle. I would light it up and I could smell it. It had a presence, and it was pushing in that back bedroom. It was pushing up into the 6.57 range. And in fact, in a couple burns, I brought it out here to the open concept because I just, toward the end, I was like, now we're getting better. Let's see how you do in the open. And it did do better in the open concept. I mean, it was still coming in at like a 5.5 kind of here in the open concept, but it was much better than it was doing the top half of the candle in the open concept. So there were some variations, which is what's making me think it does have a little bit more soy in it as opposed to paraffin, because soy often will give you a very variable kind of experience. And I would say that the first half of the candle was much shyer than the second half of the candle. But I mean, if you have one half be stronger, you definitely want it to be the second half. You want to kind of like lean into the candle as opposed to like it being really strong and then just kind of like petering out, right? So I was happy with that. And in fact, so happy with the way it performed. And of course, the lovely fragrance that I have already bought 2 backups of this one. Like I said, I love the fragrance just like full stop, but I do think of the 2, this one is definitely the most gorgeous and the more unique and brilliant kind of fragrance, especially if you don't mind fragrances that lean a little bit masculine. Tell me what you think about this. Closing, this is what I think they should do. I just think that Dressed in White should go away. I just don't think that it's good enough to be brought out every year and be anyone's signature bridal scent. It's just my 2 cents. This one could definitely come out, and given the popularity of Baccarat Rouge, this could definitely be the bridal scent, the bridal fragrance. Bath & Body Works is going to cash in, bringing Baccarat Rouge back every summer, 100%. And then if it has a bridal motif on it, stop. They're going to be laughing all the way to the bank on this one. So I think that they should just drop down to First Sight as their bridal candle. And then given the fact that it says First Sight, and First Sight is just it's like love at first sight. It could be it doesn't have to be like a masculine leaning fragrance, for instance. I just think that they need to work on the marketing and, you know, maybe put it in this marketing. Some marketing like this, yeah? And call it First Sight. And it should come out in like April, May, June, going into the bridal season. That's, if I was in charge, that's what I would do personally. Forget the Dressed in White fragrance. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough. It's fine. It's fine. That's what I think. Tell me what you think though. I'm going to link both of these down below because I think they're readily available both online and in your store. Thanks for joining me today, and I will catch you in the next one.